When my daughter-in-law stood up at the reception, I expected a sweet toast, maybe even a heartfelt welcome into her family. The room was bathed in the warm, golden light of a perfect evening, the clink of champagne glasses a gentle symphony of celebration. I smiled at her, my heart full of hope for my son, for this new chapter. Instead, she used the microphone like a knife, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she sliced into my late husband's memory and mocked our family's struggles in front of 200 guests. She spoke of his charming if misguided business ventures and our humble little house, framing my life's work and love as a series of quaint failures. I watched the room shift, pity in some eyes, amusement in others. My son looked down at his plate, unable to meet my gaze. That was the moment something inside me snapped, quietly, like a single vital thread pulled too tight. I didn't cry. I didn't explode. I simply made a decision, a cold, clear resolution that settled in my bones. If she wanted a war, if she thought I was a relic to be pitied, she would learn exactly how dangerous a quiet woman with nothing left to lose could be. My husband, Arthur, was the love of my life. He wasn't a billionaire, he was a builder. He built a modest construction business with his own 2 hands, and together we built a home filled with more love than any mansion could hold. We raised our son Daniel in that humble 3-bedroom house. It was filled with the echoes of birthday parties, the scent of Arthur's famous barbecue, and the sound of laughter that came from a life well lived, not just well funded. When Arthur passed after a short, brutal illness, the light in the house dimmed, but my love for Daniel burned brighter than ever. He was my anchor. I sold the business to give him a debt-free start, living off the remainder and my part-time work at a local flower shop. It was a simple life, but it was mine, and it was built on a foundation of integrity and love. Then he met Chloe. She was a whirlwind of polished confidence and old money from the other side of the city. I saw how she looked at our home, our traditions, our life, with a kind of anthropological curiosity. But Daniel was in love, and so I welcomed her. I baked her my best recipes, remembered her birthday, and bit my tongue when she'd make helpful comments about updating my wardrobe or staging my house for a quicker sale. The wedding plans were her masterpiece. It was to be a lavish, obscenely expensive affair, funded largely by her parents. I offered my entire remaining savings, a significant sum to me, as a gift for their future. Daniel was hesitant, but Chloe accepted it with a gracious smile. "It's so generous of you, Alina," she'd said, though her eyes held a different story. "I thought I was buying a piece of their happiness. I never knew I was purchasing a front-row seat to my own humiliation." The wedding day was a spectacle. Everything was white orchids, crystal, and a string quartet. I felt a pang for the simple garden wedding Arthur and I had always dreamed of for Daniel, but I pushed it down. My son was radiant. That was all that mattered. Then came the toasts. Her father gave a polished speech. My son gave a tearful, heartfelt one. Then Chloe stood, the microphone looking like a scepter in her hand. "I want to thank my wonderful parents for this beautiful day," she began, her voice a purr. "And I have to thank my new mother-in-law, Alina." She turned her saccharine smile to me. "She's been so supportive. She even gave us a very generous gift from the sale of her late husband's little construction company." She paused, letting the words "little construction company" hang in the air. A few of her friends tittered. "It's so touching," she continued. "It reminds me of a story Daniel told me. His father had this big dream to build a custom home community. He had so much heart." She gave a light, theatrical sigh. "But well, I guess the business sense didn't quite match the vision. It's a good lesson, isn't it? That in life and in family sentimentality doesn't pay the bills." The air was sucked from the room. She had taken Arthur's one professional setback, a risk he took that didn't pay off, and used it as a punchline to illustrate her own superiority. She had framed my life's love, my grief, my final gift to my son, as a pathetic donation from a failed family. I was a prop in her narrative of triumph. The roast chicken on my plate turned to ash in my mouth. Her humiliation was not a mistake, it was a strategic strike. In the days that followed, a cold fury crystallized within me. I didn't receive an apology. When I saw Daniel, he was defensive. "She was just nervous, Mom. She didn't mean it like that. You're too sensitive." His betrayal was a second, deeper wound. He was choosing to protect her cruelty. The invitations to their new multi-million-dollar home became less frequent. When I did visit, the atmosphere was frosty. Chloe would make a point of showing me her new designer purchases or talking about their exclusive club, her words laced with a condescending pity. "You should get out more, Alina. It must be so lonely in that big old house." I felt myself shrinking in their world, being politely erased. I'd returned to my quiet home, to Arthur's empty chair, and the silence was deafening. I started looking at my bank statements, the numbers feeling smaller and more fragile than ever. I had given them my financial security, and in return I was being made a social pariah. The final, confirming blow was when I overheard Chloe on the phone with a friend. "Oh, she'll come around. We're just waiting for her to realize the house is too much for her. There's a lovely assisted living place near here we have in mind." It was no longer just casual cruelty, it was a planned obsolescence of my own life. I knew then that hope was a liability. One afternoon, while helping Daniel retrieve a file from his home office computer, a task he'd always relied on me for, I found it. A folder on his desktop, not even hidden, labeled Mom's Transition. My blood ran cold as I clicked it open. Inside was a spreadsheet, an estimated market value for my home, a list of local realtors, brochures for retirement communities including the one she'd mentioned, and a timeline, a 6-month plan to gently encourage the sale of the property. My Sunday visits were logged with notes, reinforce downsizing benefits, discuss safety concerns. My generosity, my love, my very presence had been reduced to data points in their cold, calculated campaign to package me away. The power balance shifted in that silent moment. I was no longer the victim of their plan. I was the only one who knew it existed. I didn't say a word. I went home, made a cup of tea, and I planned. My goal wasn't revenge in the shouting, dramatic sense. It was reclamation. It was about securing my legacy and my independence so utterly that their plans would turn to dust. My plan was about justice, not vengeance. I contacted Arthur's old lawyer, a man of immense principle named Benjamin Reed. I showed him the folder, the bank records of my gift. He was quietly appalled. "This is financial and emotional coercion, Alina," he said. "We can stop this." We decided the most powerful move was a preemptive, legal one. I had my will redrafted. I left my house, its contents, and the remainder of my estate to a local charity that built affordable housing for single mothers, a quiet nod to the young woman I once was. Furthermore, with Benjamin's help, I placed the house in an irrevocable trust, with stipulations that I could not be coerced into selling it for any reason short of my own verified incapacity. My quiet countermove was to build a legal fortress around the life I loved, making it untouchable. I would no longer be a tenant in my own future, waiting for an eviction notice. I was the landlord. The confrontation happened at my kitchen table, not theirs. I invited them over for a Sunday dinner, telling Daniel I was making his favorite pot roast. They arrived, Chloe looking mildly inconvenienced. After the meal, I brought out the folder. I placed it on the table between us. "Chloe," I said, my voice calm as a still lake, "I found your transition plan. It's very thorough." Daniel's face went pale. Chloe's smile froze. "Mom, what is this?" Daniel stammered. It's the blueprint for my retirement, I said, looking directly at Chloe. The one you and Daniel have been working on without me. The market analysis for my home is a little low, by the way. This neighborhood has become quite desirable. Chloe started to bluster. Elena, you're misunderstanding. I understand perfectly, I interrupted, my voice still quiet but leaving no room for argument. I understand that you took my life's greatest love and my greatest loss and used them as a punchline. I understand that you took my financial gift and saw it as a sign of weakness. And I understand that you see my home, the last piece of my life with Arthur, as an asset to be liquidated. I slid a copy of the new trust documents across the table. This is my response. This house is mine. It will be my home until the day I die. And when that day comes, it will be used to help women who actually need a hand up, not a handout. It will never be yours. I turned to my son, my heart breaking at the shock and shame on his face. And you, Daniel, you stood by and let this happen. You let her dishonor your father's memory. You let her humiliate your mother. That is a debt you will have to live with. The room was utterly silent. The power didn't shift, it was simply revealed. It had been with me all along. I had just chosen to finally wield it. The legal process was straightforward. The trust was unassailable. Daniel and Chloe did not speak to me for several months. The silence was painful, but it was a cleaner pain than the slow death of their condescension. Eventually, Daniel began to visit alone. The first time he came and simply sat in his father's old chair and cried. He apologized truly and fully. Our relationship is mending, but it is different now. It is based on truth, not on my silent sacrifices. Chloe and I are civil but distant. The pretense is gone. I still live in my humble house. The sun still streams through the window where Arthur's chair sits. The silence is no longer lonely, it is peaceful, it is mine. This real-life story taught me that dignity is not about never being knocked down, it's about choosing how you get back up. I learned that the most powerful revenge is not a dramatic explosion, but a quiet, immovable refusal to play the role you've been assigned. I lost the illusion of a perfect family, but I found the unshakable strength of my own voice. Sometimes the most powerful response to a public humiliation is a deeply private, unbreakable act of self-respect. If this emotional story about family, dignity, and quiet strength resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. For more calm, reflective real-life stories, like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.